last week I discussed conference realignment proposition that the NHL released over the weekend of last week's show. All of my information from that area came from that weekend's proposal. Well, the NHL decided to pull a fast one on me and change their proposal literally the day after I aired my piece on conference realignment. There are some pretty significant changes to this proposal, and I will now go over them with you all. Unlike the first plan that had teams in 4 different conferences, Tuesday's plan has the NHL keeping both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, and instead of 6 divisions, there will only be 4, with each conference having 2 apiece. So in the Eastern Conference, we will have, in the Atlantic Division, the Carolina Hurricanes, Columbus Blue Jackets, New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Washington Capitals. Now, in the Central Division, the Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Florida Panthers, Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, in terms of gameplay, Eastern Conference teams will play 28 games against Western Conference teams, 1 home and 1 away. They will also play 24 intra-conference games against teams in the other division, meaning they will play 3 games per team with the extra home game rotating each year. And finally, they will play 30 games against division foes, with 2 teams facing each other 5 times and the other 5 teams playing each other 4 times. Now, over in the Western Conference, in the Midwest Division, we have the Chicago Blackhawks, Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild, Nashville Predators, St. Louis Blues, and the Winnipeg Jets. In the Pacific Division, the Anaheim Ducks, Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers, Los Angeles Kings, Phoenix Coyotes, San Jose Sharks, and the Vancouver Canucks. Western Conference teams will play over in the Eastern Conference 32 times, 1 home and 1 away. They will play 21 intra-conference games against teams in the other division, 3 against each team with the extra home game rotating each year, similar to the Eastern Conference. And Western Conference teams will play 29 division games, with 4 games against 1 team and 5 games against 4 teams. Now, the conferences, even though they're still reverting to the Eastern Conference, Western Conference format, the conferences are still uneven, as the Western Conference has 14 teams, while the Eastern Conference contains 16. The 3 teams that will change conferences in this plan are the Detroit Red Wings, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, as the Winnipeg Jets will be moving west, where they should be, and the Detroit Red Wings and Columbus Blue Jackets will move east, where they should be. Since the Western Conference in this proposed realignment has fewer teams in the conference, there is speculation that, perhaps the NHL is eventually trying to expand to 32 teams to even out the conferences. But league officials haven't indicated that will happen anytime soon. Another very, very significant change in this proposal is the playoffs and how the teams will qualify for the playoffs. The top 8, as we know it, is out. They are doing away with it. The top 8 teams will not make the playoffs, or the top 8 teams in the conferences will not make the playoffs. Instead, what the NHL is doing with this proposal is the top 3 teams from each division will automatically qualify for the playoffs. The 4th seed in each division, however, is going to be a major wild card, and honestly, where things get a little confusing, and I'll do my best to explain it. 4th seeds will be given to teams with the highest point totals with their 2 remaining spots, regardless of division. This means that one division could possibly have 5 teams qualifying for the playoffs. If the 4th seeded team with the lowest point total in the conference will also play the team who has the most points in the conference standings regardless of division, meaning, hypothetically speaking here, that possibly the Midwest Division Dallas Stars could cross over to play the Western Conference champion Vancouver Canucks and become a Pacific Division team in the playoffs for the first 2 rounds. In the event the Stars win that first round series against the Canucks, they would stay in the Pacific Division and possibly play either, hypothetically speaking again, the Los Angeles Kings or Anaheim Ducks in the second round. So, should this plan go through, the goal for the teams is not to make the top 8 anymore, but it's to make the top 3 seeds in each division, so that will guarantee a playoff spot. There was discussion of having a possible NCAA basketball-like Final Four tournament for the third round of the playoffs, pitting the remaining top-seeded team against the remaining 4th-seeded team. and the remaining second-seeded team against the remaining third-seeded team, regardless of conference. I think that kind of would have been pretty cool if you had Boston and Vancouver playing each other in the conference finals in the Final Four. Just major travel distance and kind of a renewal of the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals matchup. But the NHL scrapped those plans, and we will just continue to see the Western Conference Finals and Eastern Conference Finals for the third round of the playoffs. Now, geographically, and I'm a little biased when I say this, the biggest winners of this realignment are my Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. Both fan bases who won't have to wait ungodly hours to watch divisional games with this new plan, which has been a chief complaint of the current conference realignments for both teams for quite some time. Playing division games in the Central Time Zone will be a breath of fresh air for the Stars and Wild. And it will be a long time coming for the Stars, who used to play in the Central Division since as long as they've been in existence. Even when they were in Minnesota, they were in the North Division until it got renamed to the Central Division. And until 1998, they were in that division, and then they got realigned to the Pacific for reasons that are still unknown to me. And also reasons that are still unknown to me are why the Minnesota Wild were in the Northwest when they are in the same time zone as the Stars, the Blackhawks, the Blues, the Predators, and the Jets now. They are finally going to be playing teams in the Central Time Zone, and that's like a similar situation for the Stars. They won't have to travel all the way out to Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Colorado to play their division games. They're going to be able to have people watch the games at reasonable hours, and that's a big win. It's going to bring a lot more TV exposure to the team and also hopefully generate more fans to go to the games. The other two big winners for realignment are, that I didn't mention in my last broadcast, are the Detroit Red Wings and the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are the only two teams in the Western Conference to play in the Eastern Time Zone. Both fan bases have to currently wait until 8 p.m. Eastern at the earliest to watch most of the road games that both teams will play. When the games are on the West Coast, it's way too much. It's really taxing on their fans because they have to wait until 10 o'clock Eastern time for the games to come on TV. Switching them to the Eastern Conference will fix that, ultimately giving both teams more TV exposure. And that could be huge for the Columbus Blue Jackets because they are still a relatively new franchise in the National Hockey League, still only been in existence since 2000. And having more people watch them will definitely help their cause. Again, on the other side of this deal, the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning are screwed. They're stuck in a division with the Canadiens, Senators, Maple Leafs, and Senators, who are all pretty far from the state of Florida, to say the least. The only division matchup that will require less than 1,000 miles of travel for the Lightning outside of Florida is when they fly over to Detroit to play the Red Wings. And since the Panthers are a little bit further south, they'll have to travel a tad further than Tampa Bay to get to Detroit for the same game. The only good news for them is that they won't have to cross time zones to play their division games. So while they will travel a lot, they will only lose the amount of time it took to get to that road city. Now, it's undoubtedly going to be quite an adjustment for both Florida teams to get used to more travel, but at least they stay in the same time zone, so people will still watch the games. Another huge loss in this realignment plan is the very long and very storied Blackhawks-Red Wings rivalry, which will now only see 2 regular season games per season between the two clubs. Those two original 6 teams have been playing each other since 1926, before the Red Wings were even called the Red Wings. It's unfortunate such a storied rivalry would take a huge hit due to conference realignment, but at least they will still get to play each other twice a year, and it will more than likely be on national TV both times. If there's any positive coming from splitting the Blackhawks and Red Wings, it will be the potential Stanley Cup Finals matchup between the two teams. And if that happens, it's definitely going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm honestly not a big fan of the naming conventions for the divisions. For the past 2 decades, the NHL has named their divisions based on geography, but prior to that, in the good old days before Batman arrived, the divisions were named after legendary NHL figures: Adams, Norris, Patrick, and Smythe. And the trophies are still named after some of those guys. Since the NHL is notorious for honoring its past, they should return to naming the names of the divisions after hockey legends. It would just make a lot of sense. Therefore, the Pacific Division, I argue, should be named the Gretzky Division because the Edmonton Oilers would be in that division, and when Gretzky was and still is the greatest of all time. The Midwest Division, the Norris Division, just to rename that Central Division what it used to be. The Atlantic Division, the Lemieux Division, because Mario Lemieux is also one of the greatest of all time to ever play the game. And the Central Division, the Howe Division, because we got to honor Mr. Hockey. Naming the divisions would give proper respect to the people who made this game great. It will also eliminate geographical discrepancies in division names, such as the Boston Bruins playing in the Central Division when they are geographically the most eastern team in the National Hockey League. In the event this plan is approved, the NHL and the Players Association can meet after the 2015-2016 season to discuss if they want to keep this realignment format. Of course, this new plan has its flaws. There will be more teams in one conference than the other to start out. The two Florida teams will have to leapfrog the other Eastern Conference division to play their road division games. And the playoff format is a little confusing, especially with the 4 seeds. But for the time being, everybody wins for the most part. All the teams in the Eastern time zone are rightly placed in the Eastern Conference. And while Western Conference teams are still spread out, all the teams in the Central time zone are in a division together. And all the teams west of Colorado are in a division together. This will overall increase exposure regarding TV to the sport, since more fans will be able to watch the games at reasonable hours, especially those crucial late season division games. For a sport that badly needs more fan support, let's be honest here, in North America, this realignment plan will acquire it. It's not perfect, but it works. Coming up after the break, which team is more than happy to be done with the month of February, and it's going to be time to dole out some penalties.